The Pitt Panthers saw their 2020-21 season come to a close on Tuesday afternoon in Greensboro, 79-73 losers to the Miami Hurricanes in the 12-13 matchup in the ACC Tournament. The Panthers out of the tournament after one game, the first game of the tournament, and Pitt is already on its way home. Pittsburgh Sports Now had Mitchell Northam in Greensboro for today's game, so make sure you check the site for all of his content. He'll have a game story and post-game reaction from Jeff Capel and a number of the players, as well as some takeaways from today's game, which was an ugly one for the Panthers as they lose 79-73. They were about 3-point favorites as the 12 seed against the 13 seeded Hurricanes. Pitt beat Miami earlier this year, and they did not get a particularly good game from star forward Justin Champagnie. Champagnie had a double-double with 11 points and 10 rebounds for his 14th double-double of the season, but he shot just 5 of 20 from the floor. In the same time, everyone else at Pitt had a good day shooting as the Panthers shot 29 of 61 for 47% from the field. Nike Sabande had 24 points, was 5 of 8 from three. Femi Odukale, 28 points, 2 of 3 from 3. Those two guards in their first ACC tournament game really putting in an impressive performance. Nobody really impressing on the defensive end as the Hurricanes also shot about 43%. And were able to pretty much have their way with this game at times. Pitt also got themselves into some trouble with some turnovers, 14 turnovers as a team, and Sabande and Odukale 4 each. So a bit of a live by the sword, die with the sword for Pitt's less experienced guards, although they don't really have any more experienced guards, but those two players playing in their first tournament game. I'll be taking your questions and your thoughts. So if you have some, leave them here in the YouTube chat. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at @Saunders_PGH, and I'll try to get to those there as well. My first thoughts from the game is that it's pretty disappointing to see Justin Champagnie finish what was really an incredible season for him this way. It was clear that he just, for whatever reason, could not find his shooting stroke from the very beginning of the game, and really in a way that we have not seen at any point this year. I mean, he has been not just a really good, performer for Pitt and an all ACC performer, as he was awarded yesterday, first team all ACC honors, the first in Pitt program history. He's been extremely consistent all season as well. He had 2 games this year, both against NC State, interestingly, where he shot 33% from 2-point range. So today, 4 of 12. Right there. I mean, but the big difference was he shot 8 3-pointers in this game, and we have not seen that. That was a season high for him. Champagnie usually shoots about 33% from 3, made just 1 of those 8 today. Interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. Is that just a reaction to what can be a fair defensive team in Miami and what they were trying to do? Was that a reaction to maybe just Champagnie forcing some things? I don't know. But really a disappointing way for him to end his season and potentially end his Pitt career, as he has a decision now to make about whether he'll want to go into the NBA. He will certainly have that opportunity if he wants to, and I think would probably be a second-round pick if he decides to go. These days, that'll get you about $1 million a year, maybe a little bit more, and so that's a lot of money. And it will not be an easy decision for him, but it will be an important one for the Pitt program, as despite a disappointing performance here in this game, having Justin Champagnie back for the 2021-2022 season would certainly give the Panthers a far rosier outcome than not having him. So, man, that's the emotions to me, is that what a disappointing way for a guy that had a great season. I mean, even though this season did not go the way Pitt wanted it to individually, I think maybe until right now, you could really hold up that season from Justin Champagnie and say, well, this was still a really good thing. And man, just a sour taste in the mouth all the way around as the Panthers end their season on that note. And certainly a bright spot, I think, in Femi Odukale. I'm going to talk a little bit more about his game and what I see in his potential because I thought it was impressive. And I'll have a couple more things I want to get to, but I do want to get to some of the comments and questions I've already gotten on Twitter. Let's see here. Well, Brad wants to know, is the absolute abomination that they call free throw shooting Jeff Capel's fault? I can't imagine they've ever worked on it in practice based on what we've seen. No, I mean, I don't think any college basketball team sits there and spends, several of their, they only get so many practice hours a week. It is NCAA mandated. They have a very specific amount of time in which they are allowed to practice on the court with coaches. I can guarantee you very few NCAA teams are going to be taking up that time forcing their guys to shoot free throws. I think free throw shooting is something that if you're a player and you're not good at it, you need to have the drive in yourself to get your own butt into the gym on your own time and make yourself better. That's not an optional part of the game. You can't just be a poor free throw shooter, especially if you're a guard. And Pitt's free throw shooting, of course, today, 5 of 14 as a team, 35%, just abjectly terrible. But Kareem Koulibaly, 0 for 2, the only big with a free throw. Everything else coming from Pitt's guards and wings. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're a guard, you can't be that bad at free throw shooting. Femi Odokali, 4 of 8, really showing where he needs to grow his game, at the same time showing some offensive performance that shows some promise. But, I don't know. I don't think you can blame Jeff Capel for that. Players need to take it on themselves to become better free throw shooters if they're not good enough. And look, Femi Odokali is a freshman that played far more than he was expecting to play this year. There are significant things that he needs to work on with his game, but I think overall, today's performance should still leave a lot of promise for him going forward as Pitt's presumptive starting point guard after the transfer of Xavier Johnson. And so, yeah, no, I don't think you can put that on Jeff Capel. I think that's something that you have to put on the players. They've got to make those shots. And if they can't make those shots, they've got to find a way to improve themselves and get better. That's not like this is some aberration. Pitt as a team and Odokali individually have been poor free throw shooters all season long. Let's go to the YouTube comments. Oh, actually, before I get to those, I do want to touch on this because it has a bit to do with free throws. I was very, very interested to see what was going to happen with the officiating situation in this game after Jeff Capel went out of his way to criticize the ACC officiating after Pitt's loss at Clemson and was reprimanded by his school for doing so. And Pitt ends up with half the free throws of Miami. Miami had 28. Pitt had 14. Now, I mean, Pitt had to foul late, so that got a little bit exaggerated from where it was. But I think at one point, in the middle of the second half, it was 10-5. And so I think clearly that didn't work in Pitt's favor. And I don't think that personal fouls, common fouls, were an issue with Pitt for the season. Jeff Capel took exception to Justin Champagnie not getting a free throw against Clemson. Clemson fouls about the least in the conference on the season, and Champagnie didn't have an offensive rebound. He wasn't getting those contested touches, which is how you get fouled. And so I didn't have a problem with that. I think the legitimate problem anyway, that there has been with officiating has been the sort of rabbit ears from the officials this season. I don't know if it's just been because there have not been fans in the stands that it's so much easier to hear what players are saying. But Pitt had about 8 technical fouls called this year, and I only think one of them was for anything physical. Everything else was just for words. That's absurd to me. It should never happen. The officials need thicker skin, and it is subjective enough that I think it provides the opportunity for there to be biases involved. I do agree with Jeff Capel that there was a double standard there. And you saw it in the Clemson game when Amir Sims was very demonstrative and disagreeing with a call against him and was allowed to sort of storm off the court and make all kinds of comments. And there was nothing done. And look, I think that's the way it should happen. But it didn't happen that way against Pitt a number of times this season. And so I understand Capel's frustration with watching that happen. But I don't think the way that the typical run of the games have been called has gone against Pitt. They actually lead the ACC coming into this game in free throws per game. And they got significantly dinged, I think, for those comments from Capel. And this one, 14 free throws to 28 for Miami. Now let's get to those YouTube comments because I did see a couple here. Brock wants to know who's leaving this team in the offseason, players and coaches. Well, I mean, we know that, Terrell Brown walked with the senior day celebration after his 4 years at Pitt. He does have a fifth season available to him, but it seems pretty clear that he's going to move on. I would not be totally surprised if you see more movement than that going forward. And we still have a big question mark when it comes to what happens with John Hughley. He has his court date coming up next month in the auto theft case against him. I think how that court case goes will really determine what his future with the team is, if any. But I'd be pretty surprised as things stand to me right now if he's back. Other than that, I mean, they have some guys that I think have a legitimate, possibility to transfer. I'm not going to, hunt and peck and look, but I mean, there are going to be a lot of guys in the transfer portal. So I would not be surprised if you see more Pitt players. And then we talked already about Justin Champagne's decision about whether he wants to go to the NBA. I think personally, if I was advising him, listen, I don't know how accurate what we've seen from NBA mock drafts has been, but if you're getting the same feedback from the league as what we're seeing in the NBA mock drafts, and that he is a top half of the second round pick, then I think you absolutely go and you don't think twice about it. You're going to get $1 million a year for 2 years, probably, maybe more, to go develop in a pro environment. And to me, I think that's a no-brainer. And now if you're down in that 45 to 60 range, maybe it's a bit different of a conversation, but I haven't seen that from most of what I've seen. There were some scouts to watch him at several points this year, so I know there's at least some legitimacy to what we've seen in the media. But if he's getting that kind of feedback from the NBA, then I'd go. If he's not, if it's to the later part of the second round, then I think you probably don't want to run the risk of going undrafted and should return. He also said that he wants to make this decision with his brother, so that's an interesting aspect of it as well. And of course, there's a one-time transfer, so him coming back to NCAA basketball doesn't necessarily mean coming back to Pitt, as we just talked about. So, I mean, there's going to be 1,000 players in the transfer portal. I don't think anybody who ends their season this week is going to have the same roster they have right now in the fall. And Pitt, even though they've already had some departures, is certainly not going to be immune from that either. Gaming with Geo says the team that lost a free throw battle for sure. Also the turnovers all game, even down the stretch like that, fell apart at the end. I think, that's something that you see when you have a team that's not particularly deep or particularly experienced. Pitt did play 9 players today, but Will Jeffers played just 9 minutes. Onyeka Kudo played 3 minutes, and Terrell Brown played 11. Noah Collier played 7. Most of the guys that were in the lineup at the end of the game, Coulibaly, Sabande, Champagnie, Odekale, Horton played 30 minutes or more. And so, you're going to get worn down at the end of the game, especially because not all of those guys are used to those minutes. Horton hasn't been playing those minutes all year. Sabande hasn't been playing those minutes all year. It's been a struggle for Coulibaly to get to those minutes all year. Really, Justin Champagnie, the only guy of that group that's really used to playing a 30-plus minute game on a regular basis, and he was frankly bad today. He was not a positive contributor for Pitt, despite his 11 points and 10 rebounds. And so, I think Pitt definitely ran out of gas down the stretch. And, they're just a young team. How many of those guys that I name, you got a sophomore and 3 freshmen in that group of guys that played most of this game. And so, that's going to happen. I do think that Miami was just a better team throughout. Excuse me. I didn't think that there was I don't really think there was a point where Pitt ever was able to impose their will on Miami. They got hot from 3 a little bit, and that kind of kept them in the game. But I thought the run of play really belonged to the Hurricanes throughout. And if Pitt hadn't had, 41% from 3, way out of character for Pitt. If they didn't have that kind of performance, this would have been a 10, 15 point game pretty easily. Let's see what else we got on Twitter here. Where the F does this program even go from here? From John Smith, good follower on Twitter. To which one of my sarcastic followers said, well, I assume they'll go back to Pittsburgh. Yeah, they're going to go back to Pittsburgh after their very brief stay in Greensboro. And by the way, not sad that I did not make that trip this year. Thankful for Mitchell down there in Greensboro. And so, we'll where does this program go from here? I don't know. I don't think this loss doesn't change anything for me. They weren't going anywhere in this tournament, so losing today to Miami doesn't change anything for me compared to if they'd have lost tomorrow to Clemson. Like that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make any difference. I wasn't expecting a long run in this tournament, nor do I think anyone should have been. And so, losing today, whatever. As far as where do they go going forward, look, I think this team has some pieces that have potential. I thought Femi Odukali really showed what he's capable of as far as scoring. 28 points, 11 of 16 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. He's been a very efficient three-point shooter all season as a freshman. Maybe would like to see him shoot it a little bit more, actually, from out there. Also had 6 rebounds. He's got good length from the guard position. I thought he did a fair job defensively. I mean, Isaiah Wong is a really good player. He got 20 points, but he was 5 of 13, not overwhelming from the floor. I think the big areas for Femi to work on, free throw shooting, we talked about. The turnovers, really, 4 turnovers to 3 assists for him and 14 turnovers as a team. Some of that goes to the point guard, even if they're not his. And then he's got to be able to guard without fouling. He had 4 fouls, and Wong got to the line 10 times today. And so I just think those are the things you see as a freshman. Like you'd rather have those problems to work on than the other way around. You'd rather have a guy with 30 points that needs to make some free throws and turn the ball over a little less and guard without fouling than a guy that can't score, right? I mean, I think that's the clear option of the two. I think Pitt needs to find somebody else that can take some of the load off him. I do agree with the last comment that said Pitt ran out of gas down the stretch. I don't think that Femi Odukali is the kind of player you want playing 37 minutes a game. Certainly not at this point in his career, maybe not ever. And I don't think next year either. So to me, I think job one for Jeff Capel is finding another ball handler. Femi also showed the ability to play off the ball this year. And if he can, that'll minimize the turnovers, the three-point shooting a little bit. Maybe that's actually a better fit for him. He's certainly big enough. 6'5", has great length. Seems to be a good defender if he can avoid fouling at that spot as well. So, yeah, I think they've got to find a ball handler. I think that's the easiest thing to find in the transfer portal. I think there are plenty of lower-level guards coming up from the mid and low majors that can fill into that spot and do a very good job. I know Mike Kovcan's coverage here at Pittsburgh Sports Now, as Pitt's been talking to an FIU transfer in the portal already. There will certainly be dozens more. I'm not concerned about them finding another point guard to put with Femi. And if you mix in Ithiel Horton and Nike Sabande, I feel like that's a pretty strong backcourt. Like that works for me. If you can get another experienced point guard to go with Odukali, and that works for me. If Justin Champagne's back, I think that's a pretty good 1 through 4 lineup. If Justin Champagne's not, they've got to find somebody that can replace his rebounding, scoring, and athleticism at the 4 spot. I don't see anybody on the roster able to do that. And that is going to be far more difficult than finding help at the point guard spot. Those guys just don't grow on trees. But there are a lot of options. There are all these seniors that have their 5th year. There's anyone in the country that wants to transfer can. And so there will be plenty of guys out there. I don't see a freshman coming in, though, and performing that role. I really don't. They're not going to get somebody at this point without a commit in the 2021 class that's that kind of caliber of player. At least I wouldn't think that could be depended on as a freshman right away anyway. Maybe you get a development kind of player. Will Jeffress, a development kind of player, came out a year early, played this year, which is basically like a redshirt year as a 17-year-old, and I thought he showed some good things. At times, the scoring touch to me is the question. I covered him in high school a little bit. I didn't see a lot of outside shooting from him. He's 6'7". If you're not going to be an outside shooter, then you've got to have either some post moves or some mid-range or something that he can lean on to really power his offensive performance. I don't think he's found that yet at the collegiate level. And like I was saying with Odokali, I think Jefferson's a really good defensive player. He's got good athleticism for his size. I think he plays really hard, but I have a lot more question marks around a guy that I've not seen put up an offensive performance that shows me he belongs at this level, as opposed to a guy like Femi Odokali who has. And so, could Will Jeffress fill in for that Champagnie role? Maybe. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism. We've got to see the offense come from him. And then, the forward spot, I like Kareem Koulibaly as a rotation guy, but he's never been the smoothest offensive player. He's never been a big shot blocker. I thought Terrell Brown played better than him for a large stretch of the stretch run of this season. With Brown not coming back, with I'm assuming John Hughley not coming back, that now becomes an enormous hole in this team. And I didn't see enough from Noah Collier to feel like he can fill much of that role as a sophomore or a redshirt freshman, or whoever want to call these guys, next year. So, and bigs, unlike a point guard, are not generally plentiful or as plentiful. You can find guys that have had bit parts and maybe you can piece together a decent rotation, but a 40-minute, 6'9", 6'10", 6'11" guy, they're not out there. That's the hardest thing to find in all of college basketball. And so there are significant holes in this team going forward. That we just talked. If they lose Champagnie, they have a gaping hole at a wing or a small forward. I still think they need help at the center spot, and they certainly need help at the point guard spot. There's only 5 positions, and I just named 3.5 of them. And so, but he does have scholarships to work with. He's got at least 4, maybe as many as 6. And like I said, it will be an unprecedented season of talent available in the transfer portal. And look, if you want to be critical of Jeff Capel's tenure at Pitt so far, I think that's reasonable. I think there are probably some very good points to be made, but his ability to acquire talent is by far his best attribute. And so I don't think staring at an offseason with some holes and a whole bunch of open scholarships with Jeff Capel there to fill them should really be terrifying for Pitt fans, other than just in general Pitt fans dreading the future and the unknown as they are wont to do. But I think Jeff Capel is in a relatively good position to be able to fill those holes with the scholarships he has available and the amount of talent that's going to be in the transfer portal if Justin Champagnie comes back. If he doesn't, I have a real hard time seeing this team being above maybe the midpoint in the league next year. But look, that's the kind of thing that is going to happen when you're trying to build a program up from what was probably the worst major conference basketball team in the country. It's not going to be It was never going to be a 3-year fix. It's probably not going to be a 5-year fix. It might be a 10-year fix. It might be a 2-head coach fix. There's a long way to go. And especially when you're a program that has, made it its sort of point that Pitt is not going to just flip the bird at the NCAA and drop bags left and right and consequences be damned. That's not the nature of this program. And so it's not that easy to just flip a switch and turn things around, especially when you're going to do it within the confines of the rules. And so I don't know that anyone should be jumping for joy about what the 2021-2022 season has in store for the Panthers, but I do think that Pitt is generally in good hands with Jeff Capel and probably should be better next year than they were this year. I think you should still be able to feel that way. I think they underperformed for their talent level this year. But, when you have personal conflicts, that's going to happen. And, that first class that Jeff Capel had, and I've said that before on this channel, look, he didn't have the luxury of filtering for personalities, right? I mean, he got whoever he could get, and what he got was really impressive, even as their careers ended. And I'm talking about Xavier Johnson, Trey McGowan, and Audise Toney. Even as their careers ended far before anyone thought or wanted them to, what he still got out of them in 2 and 3.5 years is still really impressive, considering what he was recruiting on. And so, going forward, if Pitt is still having problems like that, then maybe we can say Jeff Capel is not a particularly good judge of personality. But I think in that instance, you took what you could get and you dealt with whatever you had to deal with down the road. And so, and look, that's not me being critical of those guys. It's about the fit, right? Just because two guys don't get along, that doesn't mean either of them are bad people. But if you have guys that can't get along, you shouldn't be recruiting that way. And so if those kind of problems persist, then I think maybe there would be some big picture issues, but I don't see big picture issues. I just see what was always going to be a very long and very difficult rebuild continuing to look like it's going to be a long and difficult rebuild. Let's go back to YouTube. What do we got here? Pittsburgh Sports All the Time. If you want me to be honest, I'm glad the season is over. Yeah, I think I've had that feeling for a couple of weeks now. I mean, look, when you lose 40% of your scoring with 3 games left, it's kind of like, well, I mean, Pitt, let's be honest. Pitt's realistic doing anything worth remembering season ended, what was it, 20 days ago? I mean, it was kind of playing out the string here. And, like I said earlier, I don't think winning today and losing tomorrow to Clemson would have made any difference about the way anyone felt about this season. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't really see any point to prolonging it. This was going to be a disappointing season compared to the talent level of the team, sort of no matter what, for a while now. And the real job of building this team going forward, I do think it was important to get some of these games for people like Femi, for Nike Sabande, who I don't think would have been back if he didn't get the opportunity to show what he could do in these last few weeks. Will Jeffress, I think, got really important minutes. Noah Collier got important minutes. I think those were important things for the team. But from a watching the game standpoint, I mean, it wasn't great, right? And so, yeah, I think everyone can kind of be glad this season is over, but I also think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. And I think there's a lot to look forward to about what this team is going to look like, what changes are going to happen between now and the next time we see the Panthers on the hardwood next November. And hopefully we'll be able to do so with some fans in the stands at the Pitt, which I think has been, well, look, I mean, I understand the reasoning for it, but has been sorely missed this basketball season. All right, let's see what else we got on YouTube here. We've got, is Pitt back? No, Pitt is, well, I don't know. Pitt never left, Andrew, I would say. And can they bring anyone on the staff that can just work with them on free throw shooting? I mean, look, I don't think the staff is bad at free throw shooting. I don't know. I mean, Jeff and Jason played high level basketball. Let's see here. If I look up Jason Capel's college basketball reference page, what do I have? Let's see. Jason Capel, career 82% free throw shooter, and Jeff Capel, if we look him up here, career only 67%. I would have thought as a point guard, Jeff would have been better. Look, those guys could shoot, right? I mean, even 67 better than Pitt today, for example. But I said this before. I think it's about the individual players making the effort to get better, and more than it is, anything from the coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, look, Jason Capel, 82% from the line. That'll loved him out there today. If they could have gotten just one of those guys, that'd have looked a lot better from the free throw line. So, yeah, I think they've got a guy on the staff that can teach them how to shoot free throws. The question is just, are they asking and are they putting in the work? And look, not everyone's going to be a great free throw shooter. Not everyone's going to be a great shooter. They can still be useful players like Kareem Koulibaly. Look, if he's never a great free throw shooter, that's fine, because what he does outside of that is still important to the team. But you can't have guards, especially guards that are going to drive and get fouled all the time, that are 50% free throw shooters like Femi was today, and not much better than that on the season, really, as coming into today. 49.2. So actually, he raised his season average, going 4 for 8 today. That's a significant issue for Pitt going forward, assuming he's going to be the starting point guard. All right, let's get close to wrapping things up here. Panthers, again, season-ending losers to Miami. 79-73 in the first game of the 2021 ACC Tournament in Greensboro. Again, Mitchell Northam on scene for Pittsburgh Sports Now. His game story should be up in a matter of moments over at the site. He'll also have post-game reaction from Jeff Capel and the Pitt players, as well as analysis on what went wrong with the Panthers in their very abbreviated trip to the ACC Tournament this season. First game losers to Miami, and the Panthers end their season with that one, as Pitt finished with a below 500 record. And still, if you want to take a look at the, Pitt 10-12 and 6-10 against ACC opponents, still plenty of reason for growth there. 6-14 against league opponents last year, 3-15 in Jeff Capel's first season, and of course 0-18 under Kevin Stallings, and 4-14 under Kevin Stallings in his first season. So not since Pitt went 9-9 in Jamie Dixon's last season in 2015-16 have the Panthers had this high of a winning percentage against conference opponents. And so plenty of positives to take looking at the very big picture. The direction of the program, I still think is very positive. I believe in Jeff Capel. I think this is a team that underperformed its talent level. I think mostly because it was a team that couldn't get along with one another. And maybe part of that is on Jeff Capel, but maybe part of that is just on not having the right mix of players as well. And we'll find out, as Capel has a significant remodeling job to do this offseason with 4 and maybe as many as 6 new players slated to join the Pitt lineup. Last check of the comments here. We've got nothing else, so we'll wrap things up. Thanks for watching, and thanks for watching all of our Pittsburgh postgame shows this season. It's been a lot of fun doing these for the first time, and we'll continue going forward with the Pittsburgh postgame editions after Penguins basketball games. We've got West Virginia still making their way through the Big 12 tournament. Their first game, I believe, is on Thursday. And we'll have the Pittsburgh Pirates starting their 2021 season coming up at the end of this month. So we'll just keep rolling along with myself and Mike Osti and Matt Geica hosting these Pittsburgh post games, and we hope you enjoy them. Please leave a comment, like and subscribe, especially so you get that notification every time we go live with Pittsburgh Postgame, and also the rest of our shows from Mike and Matt, and our postgame video from players and coaches after practices and games for the Penguins, Pitt, Duquesne, West Virginia. We've got soccer, we've got racing, we've got Penn State with Corey Geiger. We've got it all, and we really appreciate you all listening and following along this season. So for the rest of the Pittsburgh Sports Now and Pittsburgh Sports Live crew, I'm Alan Saunders. Thanks for watching, and